Welcome back, guys. And boy, oh boy, what a day it is to be a Mavericks fan. Today, we hit the lottery and we got that man, Cooper Flagg, with the first pick. And oh my God, words can't express how excited I am to go watch him play at the American Airlines Center. And, this really saved Nico Harrison's, it really saved Nico Harrison because if we didn't get Cooper Flagg, who knows what the pressure on Nico would be right now. And he's followed up the draft lottery and the draft tonight with some great moves. He extended Kyrie Irving for $39 million annually after Kyrie Irving declined his $43 million player option. And then he also extended Daniel Gafford to $18 million, which is a little bit of a cut from what he was expected to get at $20 million. So overall, great moves to the Mavericks. So what's next for Dallas? Well, Kyrie Irving's out for the foreseeable future for like about 50, 60 games. So in my opinion, it is necessary to go get a point guard. And that's what the Mavericks have been trying to do recently. They've been trying to look at some nice targets and really narrow down who they're trying to select. And in the press conference today after the draft, Nico Harrison actually said, we have a bunch of options within our budget, and I think a lot of players would like to come play for our team. Obviously, after we treated Luka, I don't know how true that is, but I do believe that within the budget, there are a lot of options. First off, being Chris Paul. I love Chris Paul. He's one of my favorite players ever. So, getting Chris Paul and Kyrie and Anthony Davis on the team, 3 Hall of Famers, and Klay Thompson, 4 Hall of Famers, to, help mentor Cooper Flagg. That would be an amazing asset for the young player like Cooper Flagg, and he would really flourish. I already think he's really going to flourish in Dallas with all these Hall of Famers around him. He doesn't have the pressure to go succeed immediately. He can just be him, do what he does best, play defense, just affect the game in a positive manner, which is what Cooper really does. That's why you drafted him. And if he went to any of these other teams, they would be like, go score the ball, go get 25 points a game. With Dallas, it's not like that. It's like, go get yours whenever it's available, and then play good defense and affect the game in a positive manner. And that's exactly what he'll do. He's a can't-miss prospect. There's no way he will be a bust in this league. It is literally impossible because he can play defense, and that's what wins championships. So he will be a valuable asset no matter what. And Chris Paul, with him, that's just amazing to imagine. You can get someone who gets him the ball and gets other people the ball. Like, you saw how Gafford and Lively benefited from Luka's playmaking. Chris Paul is a great playmaker too. They would benefit greatly from his playmaking as well. So just something to keep looking for. And I think that'd be a great ad. Another ad, which I'm not very much of a fan of, and probably the most likely ad, which is a little annoying for me, is Mavericks getting D'Angelo Russell. So D'Angelo Russell, he's known as like a shooter, but last year he shot 29% from 3 on 37% from the whole field. Whenever you need a playmaker when Kyrie's out for 60 games, I don't think he fits the mold because he's more of a shot chucker in my opinion. And if you're saying defense wins championships, he might be the worst defender in the league. So it makes no sense to go get him. And I don't know why Mavericks are the favorites to land him. According to a very credible source, Mark Stein, who covers all things Mavericks, we like him most. We like him over Chris Paul, over Malcolm Brogdon, and over Lonzo Ball. I prefer all 3 of the other guys more than D'Angelo Russell. I would rather honestly just bring Spencer Dinwiddie back than get D'Angelo Russell, someone who already knows the system, who's been with the Mavericks for a long time. He's a shot chucker, but he at least plays defense. D'Angelo Russell does not play a lick of defense. So I just hope that we can get that resolved and hopefully get Chris Paul, my guy, or Brogdon or Lonzo Ball. Lonzo would be a little bit more tricky because we'd have to get him via trade, so I don't think that's as likely. Brogdon is still in the realm of possibilities with Chris Paul. So, like I mentioned, Daniel Gafford is staying put, and Cooper Flagg is coming in. So the foreseeable line, our lineup in the future, our best lineup will probably be a combination of Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Daniel Gafford. That sounds like an amazing lineup to me. But wait, we're forgetting one main piece. What happens to PJ Washington? PJ Washington is one of my favorite players. As soon as he stepped on the court as a Mavericks player, it just felt like it was meant to be, So there's some players for a franchise where it's just like they're meant to be there. And PJ Washington is one of those players for the Mavericks, in my opinion. So there's been a lot of rumors, especially with our salary cap situation and Cooper Flagg coming into town, that PJ Washington is getting traded. And I think the Mavericks or the rumors were that PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford were going to get traded. And the Mavericks have said that publicly that their preference is to keep both of them. But when they just re-signed Gafford, I think that shows their preference of who they want to keep, who is on the way out. And unfortunately, I think PJ Washington would be on the way out. I don't think the Mavericks would do a deal unless they're blown away with the deal, like maybe for a point guard, like I was just saying, but it would have to be some of a much better caliber. And the option I would like, Drew Holiday, even though he's a lot of money, he's already off the market. So who would you go get with the PJ Washington value of a player? Like, I don't think there's anyone worth it out there. So hopefully he stays. But it's just a lot of like the salary put situation on like, how are we going to maintain everyone? And I think they can make do with it, but we just got to go get a point guard for the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is $5 million, and keep us under the second apron, because that can really start to, prohibit us from doing a lot of things. So with that being said, I hope we do keep PJ Washington, but I just do not know how very likely that is, especially with the Daniel Gafford extension. So yeah, another option for point guard I didn't mention was actually Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder is a great ball handler and a great player for the Mavericks, but he's had some issues with Dirk Nowitzki in the past, and I do not know how likely that is for him to come to Dallas with issues with our best player of all time, another possible point guard. So one thing that was actually kind of comforting to see today was Dirk Nowitzki welcomed Cooper Flagg to Dallas. And recently he's been very visibly upset with the franchise after the Luka Doncic trade. So it was very refreshing to see Dirk actually welcome Cooper into the franchise after everything that was happened. And, it was kind of funny to see because Jason Kidd, another person who I think will be very integral in Cooper's development, Jason Kidd was like on the phone call with Cooper Flagg, and he was saying like the kid from Duke is finally coming to Dallas, because whenever he was on the podcast, he's always mentioned kid from Duke, because if you mention Cooper Flagg, then it's officially tampering. But everyone knew we're going to take Cooper Flagg. So that was just something really funny to see. The rest of the draft, honestly, was a bit of a wild card. So, Ace Bailey was projected top 3 the whole time. And in this last week, he really slid because he didn't attend any of the pre-draft workouts. And it was really interesting for me to see that, because he could have went to a very established team and possibly a playoff contender in Philadelphia. But instead, he went to a team where he didn't want to go. And he publicly said that he didn't want to go to Utah Jazz, and he got drafted by them. So very unfortunate for him, but I think that's his own doing. And one point guard the Mavericks would have liked was Walter Clayton. And unfortunately, I think they were trying to trade back up into the first round to go get him, but unfortunately, they couldn't get a deal done. And I think a deal probably would have involved a PJ Washington, and that's why they didn't want to go do that, which is totally understandable. And yeah, I do not blame them at all for that. So with all this being said, like, where does this put the Mavericks in terms of next season? Like, how are we going to start? How are we going to end? Where is our seeding going to be? Like, who do we match up with well? And I think the Mavericks will end next year as a top 5 seed. I would say higher, but the only reason I'm not saying higher is because Kyrie Irving is missing 50 to 60 games. Our best or second best player is missing 50 to 60 games. And even though we have Cooper Flagg, going 50 to 60 games without a Kyrie Irving, without that guy as your ball handler who gets a double team, who attracts all that attention and away from other players and allows them to create and score, that's a big loss. So the point guard that we'll get will obviously help alleviate that, but it's not going to be enough to completely replace Kyrie Irving's impact. His impact will never be replaced from a single or multiple players. That's just not going to happen. So I think in the early part of the season, it is very important to get Cooper Flagg going offensively. I have no doubt he will be the first or second best defensive player on this team, because obviously you have Anthony Davis, who's a top defensive player in the league. I think Cooper will have no issues fitting into Jason Kidd's defensive scheme at all. Where I do see a little bit of a concern is him handling the ball. That's my only concern for Cooper Flagg that's ever been a concern. Especially in the first part of the season, you're going to need that a lot out of him, in my opinion. You're going to need someone who can be kind of like a point forward. And Jason Kidd has alluded to giving Cooper Flagg the keys to the offense and being a point forward. So I think in the early part of the season, it's really important to get him going on offense. Not only just hitting spot up threes and cuts to the baskets and dunks, but getting his shot off the dribble and facilitating and creating for others and being a little bit of that point forward. That is very important, because once Kyrie Irving comes back, and if you already have that part of his game more developed, I'm not saying he can't do it right now. I'm just saying that's not his best skill. If that can become one of his best skills and he becomes even more well-rounded, this team will be unstoppable. Right now, they're already looking amazing, but if you can get that going too, that is going to be nuts. I think this Mavericks team is the literal way to beat the champions who just won 2 days ago, Oklahoma City Thunder. We have someone to match up with the big, someone to match up with Shea. We have multiple people to match up with Shea. Cooper, PJ. We have a lot of people to match up with Shea. They're going to put Lou Dort on Kyrie. Who's going to guard Cooper? Who's going to guard AD? You think Chet can guard AD with all of AD's muscle? Who's going to guard Gafford? Hardenstein? PJ off the bench. Who's going to deal with that? Like, it's just so many X factors for the Mavericks, and they have so many tools in their toolbox that it makes them almost unstoppable. And it's just really exciting for me to see, even after the Luka trade, how my favorite team can still be so impactful and good somehow after making probably the worst move of the century, and it's actually benefiting them. That's very interesting to see, in my opinion. All that being said, I think this Mavericks team has finals potential. Obviously, it is Cooper's first year on the team this year, so it's a little interesting to see, and we'll see what Kyrie looks like after the rehab, but I have no doubt that Cooper, Kyrie, and AD will mesh perfectly, and I expect Cooper Flagg to finish this year with hands down the Rookie of the Year award. Probably, I would expect him to average upwards of 17 points a game, a block and a steal a game, as well as a couple of dimes, and maybe 5+ rebounds, something like that. He will be an amazing add for this team, and an amazing basketball player in the future. Shooting the three, he can facilitate, he can play amazing defense. I would give him a Kawhi Leonard comparison. Just think of Kawhi Leonard as an 18-year-old, like a young Kawhi Leonard, except more developed than Kawhi was at the time. And think of that as Cooper Flagg. He will be an awesome add for this team. All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening today. And I'm sorry for the extended wait on all of my episodes. I'll be better about getting them out in the future. All right. See you, Mavs Nation. Hope to talk to you guys soon.